Hi, and welcome to BariAftercare. I'm so glad you're joining me today. Today, we're going to be talking about self. Self. Let me start by saying this weekend, my husband and I went on a weekend getaway, which I'll tell you a little bit about. But what happened during this weekend getaway brought me face to face with kind of an in-depth look at myself. And self is the last letter in the four ACES, which we've been talking about for the last 4 or 5 weeks. So, reminder, four ACES stand for those four A words: awareness, accountability, attitude, and acceptance, E for effort, and S for self. So, as we go through this, tonight on the podcast and on the BariAftercare video, I'll talk about what I learned about myself this weekend, a little bit of self-disclosure, and how this may or may not apply to your journey through weight loss and the development of a healthy lifestyle. And I want to take a minute just to remind you that a healthy lifestyle is so much more than the number of your weight on a metallic device called a scale. But a healthy lifestyle includes how you treat yourself, how you see yourself, right? How do you treat your body in terms of what you put into it, if you exercise it, and how you talk to yourself about not only your body, but that too, to your friends on social media and in your mind, right? Because sometimes those things don't match up. We might talk a good game externally, but when we think and talk to ourselves about ourselves, whether it's our body or our mental state or whatever, our abilities, it might be a little bit different scenario. So be, we do not want to be duplicitous, right? One person on social media and a complete other person behind the scenes or in our real life. So, how you treat yourself and how you treat others. Now, here's a funny thing, right? How you treat others at home, at the office, in the community. And by others, I mean people you know well, your family, your friends, and also people you don't know, strangers, people you're never probably going to see again. How do you treat other people? Because this is a reflection of how you see yourself. And why am I talking about all of this? Because how you see yourself, how you value yourself, is going to make a tremendous difference in all of the aspects of a healthy lifestyle. But when it comes to your weight and when it comes to whether you continue a lifestyle of healthy eating or if you revert to old habits, how you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself has tremendous impact on those behaviors. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. So, you've heard the expression dance as if no one is watching. My suggestion is that you behave as if everyone is watching. Let me say that again. Dance as if no one is watching, but behave as if everyone is watching. So whether you're in public or you're in private, whether you're with friends or whether you're with family, or whether you're with strangers or coworkers, behave as if the whole world could see how you're behaving, because we would probably, most of us, tend to behave a little bit better. But what does our unhealthy behavior say about self when nobody's watching, right? Well, let's think about that for a minute. Obviously, we're not always going to be on our best behavior. When we get hungry, angry, lonely, tired, too stressed out, whatever, our defenses are down a little bit and we're not maybe at our best. Speaking of not at our best. If you're watching this on a video, you can see, well, I'm tired. It's very, very late, for one thing. And excuse me, I'd be sleepy. I just got off the treadmill. I have company here. We're having a very nice time, a great time, a lot of laughter, a lot of fun. It's late and I'm tired, so you're going to see that. But that's not an excuse for unhealthy behavior. So, why do I say that? Why do I talk about this unhealthy behavior and fatigue? Because it goes into the beginning of my weekend with my husband. So, tonight there's going to be quite a bit about self disclosure, but it's all going to tie up in a pretty bow back to how this relates to your journey with weight and how you feel about yourself. So, let me digress just a minute before I get back to my unhealthy behavior this weekend and what that told me about myself and how that fed into the whole weekend of self-awareness and learning learning more about myself. So most of you know that many years ago, 30 some years ago, I entered a treatment program. And not unlike a lot of people who get to the point of having weight loss surgery, I got to the point of entering treatment for substance abuse and dependence, much like people come to the point of having weight loss surgery. In other words, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. A lot of people who have weight loss surgery have fought with the weight thing for a long time, and they're tired of it. They're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired in relation to their weight. And if you've listened to my podcast for any time at all, or are a part of BariAftercare, then you know that I believe that for the majority of people, not for everybody, but for the majority of people who end up carrying a lot of extra weight to the point where weight loss surgery may be necessary to improve your health, or somebody like me whose means of coping with life wasn't food, although it was at one time earlier in my life. It was substances at that point when I entered into treatment and was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Is that how we feel about ourselves has a lot to do with how we ended up where we were before we decided to make a lot of positive changes in our life. Now, if you've been through treatment of any type, or if you've had weight loss surgery, then you know that the surgery or the treatment process is really just the beginning of so many changes that are going to hopefully encourage you to look at yourself, not just your physical body and the changes after weight loss surgery, but the essence of who you are self. Not physical body self, I'm going to say this again, but who you are self. Who you are in terms of how you feel about yourself, how you treat yourself, how you treat other people, how your behaviors and your self-talk and your talk to other people is related to that essence of self and how you feel about yourself, because I will guarantee you there's a correlation. And here's the thing, many of us are unable to see that when it comes to ourselves. We have walls built up, we have layers of protection, and it's there for a reason. We are protecting ourselves in many of these cases. What are we protecting ourselves from? In some cases, it's the truth about ourselves and how we really feel about ourselves. In some cases, it's the truth about some aspects of life, maybe where we came from. What are the things that people you know not yourself in this case, have avoided through excessive alcohol, excessive work, excessive reading. There is such a thing, right? Excessive use of food, anything that is causing problems in a person's life because it's done in excess takes us away from self. It takes us away from ourselves because either we don't like ourselves and or we don't like the circumstances we're in. We don't like how we feel. We don't feel capable of dealing with our surroundings. In either case, for many people who struggle with weight issues, for many people who struggle with eating disorders or any kind of addictions, we're trying to avoid what we need to face, which is ourself, which is our truth, which is the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, back to the weekend. This may feel a little bit scattered to you, but it is what it is. And this is kind of where I wanted to go tonight. Just some self-disclosure, excuse me, tying it in with the weight loss journey. When I went into treatment, not wanting to acknowledge this to myself, which may be similar for you. I can't speak for you, but I can say that in my many years of working with patients, I'm guessing that for many of you, this is true. When I entered treatment, when you got to the point of having weight loss surgery, you're at a point in your life where not only are you sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you think it's because of the alcohol or the drugs or the weight or whatever it happens to be, but if you dig way down underneath the layers, if you peel all those layers off that onion, there's a piece of that says, I'm sick of myself. I'm sick of treating myself like this. I'm sick of thinking about myself in these bad ways. But I do these things because I'm not really liking myself right now. I'm not liking the self I have become. And so we have to look in the mirror and take a deep, hard look at those parts of ourselves that we are sick and tired of being. And so when I went into treatment, I did not like myself, and my behavior reflected that. And here's a truth for you. Our behavior reflects how we feel about ourselves. It absolutely does. If you're the person at the office and everybody knows you're the gossip, and you're going to tell everything about everybody else that's none of your business to be telling, again, I apologize. It's late at night and I tend to cough more late at night, and there's allergies, but I'm sorry for the coughing. But if we're the gossip person, if we tell other people's secrets, this is just between you and me, and then you blurt it out to all the other people, that says something about how you feel about yourself, because people who feel good about themselves and trust themselves and value themselves and think I'm a trustworthy person don't share secrets about other people and don't gossip about other people. Ouch, right? I was that person. I've shared before about this card that I gave a friend of mine at the time, and it said, I love our intellectual and stimulating conversations. On the inside, it said, who should we rake over the coals next? That's really sick, right? Because we would talk about everybody we worked with and like we were the superior beings in that crowd. Let me tell you, the two of us sitting there bashing about everybody else, what it did was give evidence to anybody else who might be watching or listening. Not that there was anybody, but it spoke to the fact that neither one of us felt good about ourselves, because people who feel good about themselves don't behave that way. They just don't. Now, you may with a best friend, you know, have a little bit of judgment talk about the celebrity on the cover of the magazine or whatever. But you don't spend a whole lot of time engaging in critical talk about other people, nor do you spend a lot of time engaging in critical self talk, whether it's inside your head or outside your mouth to other people. People who feel good about themselves and love themselves, yeah, we may have a momentary, "Ugh, how could I have done such a thing?" Or "I'm so mad at myself," or "I'm such a goober." But it's not a consistent narrative. And if that's the consistent reel that plays in your head, this constant negative self-talk, that's a real good indication, my friends, that you're not happy with yourselves. You're not liking yourself. You're not loving yourself. People who cut themselves, starve themselves like I did when I was engaging in anorexia, cause physical harm to their bodies by indulging in way too much alcohol or mood altering drugs that maybe, alter your thinking and you get in car accident or, whatever it may be. Or people who binge and purge, or people who stuff themselves to the point where they feel absolutely sick afterwards, or people who put on so much weight that they can hardly move and it's not a physiological problem. These are behaviors that say there's parts of me who absolutely don't like myself. And these private thoughts, which we may not even come to accept ourselves. We may not even be able to say those things to ourselves, but they're evident to other people, whether or not they're evident to ourselves and whether or not we want to say that. And I'm not saying that there are not a lot of physiological issues that lead to weight gain. There are, and I'm not discounting those. But the part I'm talking about when it comes to your weight is the junk food or the unhealthy food that you willingly put into your body, knowing that it's causing problems, or knowing that your weight has caused problems in your life and with your health, and you don't quit those unhealthy habits. So that's the part I'm talking about, not if you have a biological disorder or you're taking a lot of steroids to treat some um, other issue, or if you have PCOS, it makes it difficult to lose weight. I'm talking about the part of you who struggles with weight and continues to put a lot of unhealthy food in their body and does not get any exercise. So if that's you, then I'm talking about, yes, there's a part of you that says, I don't really value myself. You don't have to believe me, you don't have to like it. But if you talk to people years after they've lost weight, many of them will come back and say, I didn't want to believe that about myself at the time, but it's true. Just like I didn't want to say about myself at the time I entered treatment, I don't really like myself, I don't value myself. Years later, I say, wow, my behavior was a clear indication that that was a person who did not value herself very much. And for most of us, that comes from prior times in our earlier life when we weren't able to process things like an adult, but we processed things like a child because we were a child, right? And we took on a lot of blame or ownership of things that were not our issue, but we internalized those things and came to believe that there was something wrong with us. We developed a bad case of shame, and along with shame comes, I don't like myself too much. And then we act that out. But it can be improved. So this brings us to my behavior on my weekend away with my husband this last week. Well, we had a flight out at like 10:30 on Thursday night, and the flight got pushed back. It was 10 o'clock. Pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And finally at 12:30 a.m., we flew out of Atlanta and we landed in Miami probably at like 12:30, 1:30, 2 o'clock maybe. So by the time we get to this hotel, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. And lo and behold, I had discovered at the airport that I forgot to book myself off for the next day of patients. So on Fridays, I usually see about 4 people. So I realized that at 9 o'clock that morning, I had patients. I hadn't planned on seeing any patients that morning. So I was very frustrated with myself for not having adjusted my schedule or told my scheduler, don't put people on my schedule. So I was upset with myself. I was very, very fatigued. I was very, very hungry. And we get to the hotel. And first of all, the woman wouldn't let us in the door to the hotel and just kept saying, you can only sign in at 3 p.m. You have to come back at 3 p.m. I'm like, really? So I we she didn't open the door, somebody else did. Anyway, we got in and we go up to the counter. We had called earlier to let them know we were going to be late because the plane had been delayed. So there was supposedly a note in the file, in the system, whatever. Well, she wasn't having it. We were not going to be getting a room, and I was not being polite. My husband took over and was a very healthy adult and got the situation handled. I was being a petulant, tired, hungry child in the moment. Well, I had to look at that behavior because I don't like when I behave that way. I don't like it. It used to not bother me at all. You know, I didn't bother me, but now it does because that is not who I want to be. That is not the kind of self I want to be, and it's not the kind of self I like to be. So, okay, so there was one. That was one thing. So finally, I get through we get a few hours of sleep, get through the patients, we go, and we're staying on a houseboat, and this was glorious. So we were staying on a houseboat, and we had no TV, and we had, I mean, it was just us. And we had, let me tell you, the most beautiful, connecting, talking weekend that we have had in years and years and years. And both of us have done a lot of self development, a lot of therapy, and a lot of growth over the last several years. But I had come to a point where I was feeling very um, disrupted inside. I wasn't feeling a calmness inside and I wasn't liking it. And so I started talking through a lot of things with my husband. And as I was talking through these things, it became clear that I needed to do a little bit more self work. So when I say self work, what I'm talking about is just looking at what I like about myself and what I'm not happy about with myself, and looking at what I'm proud of and grateful for, and honestly, what I learned about myself this weekend um, is that in many ways I've learned to appreciate and like and love myself through a lot of hard work, right? So it wasn't just because I went to treatment. It's not just because you have weight loss surgery and lose weight that you're going to change how you feel about yourself on the inside. Yeah, I know that people have surgery and they gain more confidence and they start setting more boundaries and all of that. That is very, very good. And I am all for that. So I would encourage you to give yourself tremendous credit for all those positive things. And yet, if you didn't have this great love of self, appreciation for self, respect for self before you had surgery or under treatment, you're not automatically going to have it because you quit drinking or lost weight. I'm going to repeat that. Just because we lose weight or sober up, yes, we feel better about ourselves and deserve to and have pride in that. But the big picture is there are still a lot of looming issues on the inside related to our self-worth and our self-esteem that are not changed because we lose weight or get clean and sober. We start to feel better about and appreciate and value ourselves more by learning to like ourselves, by learning to forgive ourselves for things we have done, by learning to recognize that some of the ways we have been behaving up to the point where we're about protection and about a lot of unresolved uh, trauma or abuse or neglect or loss, unresolved grief. We learn to love and like and appreciate ourselves by working through those things. We don't work through those things by entering a treatment program and or completing it, or by having weight loss surgery and or losing the weight. We work through those things and begin to love and value and appreciate ourselves by talking about what we didn't like before we went into treatment or before we had weight loss surgery. But that's not how it usually works, because after weight loss surgery or after coming out of treatment, all of a sudden we have this false, falsely inflated sense of self. And by falsely inflated, yeah, we feel better. We have more energy. We're clean. We're sober. We're eating healthier or exercising. So our sense of self becomes inflated, but it's only a facade until you do the real internal work. Like that, believe it, that's up to you. But as you experience it, I think you'll start to understand it better. So what I'm getting at here are a few things that happened over the weekend. And there have been times in my life through these last 30 some years of recovery where it's like you come to a level and then you hit something that makes you really think about things and look at yourself at a yet a deeper level, and then you grow even more by facing some pain and some struggle, and you work through it, and then you grow even more, and that's kind of how it goes. And that's what this weekend was for me. So I was talking to my husband about some insecurities I was having related to different areas of my life and things that were happening, and how I was more and more aware in recent weeks that even though I have done a great deal of self work and a great deal of therapy and a great deal of learning to love and like myself, I knew I was at a place where some of those old issues were seeping into the forefront and interfering with my peace of mind, with my serenity, with the way I felt about myself, with my gratitude, and um, how I was valuing myself. And it was because of how I was treating other people and the kinds of thoughts that I was having, like greed and jealousy and some guilt. And this is some of what transpired this weekend. So we were having these really, really deep discussions about life and healing and recovery and going deeper into ourselves and all the therapy we'd done and what was going on that was turning up inside of me. And I don't know, the conversation went all these different places, but and what it landed on was, I just feel like I can do better. I feel like there's some areas that I need to grow in. Well, many years ago, there was a woman named Mary Jo Rapini, and I'll put this in the notes for the podcast. Her name is Mary Jo Rapini. She is a marriage and family therapist and a sex therapist out of Houston. And she used to present at some of the weight loss surgery patient conferences because she would talk about relationship issues. She would talk about sexual relationship issues after weight loss surgery and all of those things. And my husband had met her a couple times on some of these events. Really an amazing woman, beautiful on the inside and the outside. And truth be told, this was a little bit about where I was at with my self-worth back in the day, because this was at least, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago. I was very intimidated by her. I was new at the public speaking thing. I wasn't really very good at it. I wasn't really comfortable in my role as a bariatric psychologist at that time as much as I am now, even though sometimes I still have some insecurities about that. But Mary Jo, I did what a lot of other people do when we look at somebody. I'm like, that woman's got it all together. I don't measure up. I'm intimidated by her. It wasn't her. It was me. 100% me. Anyway, Steve said, I've got to show you this thing that I found. I was scrolling through some, I don't know, Instagram or whatever you're scrolling through. And he said, I must have accidentally stopped, you know, pressed on her reel or something. And this thing came up. He said, I wanted to show you because you know Mary Jo. This was a huge impactful piece of this weekend. So I'm like, he said, I think you'd be interested in listening to what she had to say. Because we were talking about spiritual things and, how we feel like sometimes we're doing really well and being a good person and being a good person toward self and toward others. And then at other times I'm like, oh God, I've got so much work to do on myself, blah, blah, blah. So I listened to this. Now, whether you're a spiritual person or not, take away the take home message of this. You can think it was a dream she had or however you want to think about this, but this was her story. And I will put the link on so you can watch the video yourself. So I'm paraphrasing for Mary Jo as I talk here, but this was really profound to me. So Mary Jo she's a tiny little person, and she really values her health, and she values physical health and mental health and spiritual health. And she was working as a therapist with cancer patients, children. And these children, of course, many of them were passing away and dying. And she was really struggling with her faith. Like, how could God let all these innocent little children suffer so much and die? And she worked in this field for a very, very long time. So she was really inundated with the death and suffering of these innocent young children. It was taking a toll on her. But she continued to take care of her physical health. And one day she was at the gym and basically she had an aneurysm. She can fill in the details for you if you listen to this. But she had an aneurysm and she ended up in the hospital in intensive care. And she had what people would call a death experience or a near-death experience. What she says about this experience, and again, interpret how you want. If you're not a spiritual person, think of it as a dream. I don't care, but it was really, really profound. So in her experience, she says that she had a conversation with God, and she went, to heaven, and she was having this conversation with God, who told her it was not her time to die. It wasn't her time to leave the earth, and so she was going to be sent back. And she said she just felt such overwhelming love in the presence of God and in this other, alternate reality. And she said she didn't want to come back to earth. She wanted to stay there where there was just nothing but love. And so she said, so I have this conversation with God where I'm telling him, listen, I'm a good person. And I worked with these kids and they were sick and they were dying, and I went above and beyond and I was there for them, and I'd go in on the weekends and when I wasn't scheduled. And I really tried hard to be a good mom, and I tried hard to be a good wife, and I did volunteer activities, and I'm a good person. She said, here I'm trying to convince God of my goodness. And basically the message God gave her was, how have you loved? And she was telling him these things. And he said, have you loved the way I loved? He said, and she was like, well, I can't compare with this. And he's like, you can do better. And then she is still living, and she's still working as a psychologist in relationships, and she has a lot of videos on Instagram because I've seen them. And I follow her. She's wise and she's wonderful, and she's got a solid marriage, and she does a lot of self work. But what she said really hit me hard, and I would encourage you to look at this too. Not because you want to beat yourself up more, or not because you want to say, oh, I'm just not a good person, but because we have to both give ourselves credit for what we do and for the growth we make, but also be aware that we can probably do more. You can do better. I can do better. And I said to my husband, I'm very aware of how I can do better, but I need to sort out this disturbance within myself so that it's not getting in the way of my treating myself and you and other people better, because I want to do it better. And the message was, you can do better. And I think that as much as we think or we give ourselves credit for doing better than we did before, and we should give ourselves credit for doing better than we did before. Absolutely, without doubt, be grateful, give thanks, and praise yourself for those things because we are growing human beings. And that's another one of the messages I took away from this, that this is a lifelong journey of improving our relationship with ourselves, because how we treat ourselves displays everywhere in our world by how we treat our friends, our family, strangers, everybody. It is absolutely a direct reflection of how I feel about myself. Yeah, we're going to have lapses when we're too hungry, too angry, too lonely, too tired, blah, 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 blah. But one of the takeaway messages that I want you to take is, yes, I'm doing better and I'm working on myself and I'm going to be proud of myself, but I cannot get complacent because I can always love better. I can love myself better. I can love others better. So that was one of the things. And then the second thing that happened is I read a book while we were there this weekend, and the book is called Enemies of the Heart. And the enemies that the author was talking about were guilt. I could live in guilt. Anger. Anger is my number one defense. Greed and jealousy. Don't we all suffer with those to some degree? So I was reading about things and I'm like, oh my God, I could let guilt just consume me. So one of the things the author was saying is if you carry around a lot of guilt, then confess to the person. Confess. Like, and as you go through your day, and they teach this in the 12 step, it's like, take an inventory. How did I do today? Where did I do well? Yes, give yourself credit for where you do well. Where did I show love for myself? And how did I show love for others? And then where did I not? How can I make up for how I did not? And that kind of, it's not going to take away any hurt you caused other people, but it's going to at least help you kind of clean the slate by saying, okay, I messed up, but I took ownership of it. I'm accountable for it. Those are those words. I'm aware that I hurt other people. I accept that I can't take away their pain, but I'm accountable for acknowledging the things that I did. And also do that with the things you did well. Say, you know what? I'm aware that I could have yelled at this person today, but I chose not to. I chose to have a calm conversation with those. And I accept that I did a better job than I would have in the past. And I am um, I am accountable for the good things I do as well for the not good things I do. So use all these four ACEs. But remember, guilt, anger, greed, jealousy, we all suffer from those a little bit, and we could do better. Give yourselves credit for how you handle those things well and love yourself for those things, recognizing I can always do better. Because as much as we, work to, you know, we work to improve ourselves, and we should be grateful for that. I think sometimes we say, well, I focus so much on other people. I don't take care of myself. But there's a part of me that is aware that sometimes our not taking care of ourselves and giving to others, giving to others, there's a selfishness to that. What? Yeah, absolutely. So I give. And part of that, especially if you're a woman, you're a mom, you're a mother, you're doing all these things at once, and we take care of other people before ourselves. But is there part of that? Is there part of that that says, maybe I don't set boundaries with people and take time for myself to do exercise or to meal prep or to just spend a few minutes alone? Is there part of that because the part of me that doesn't really like or appreciate myself gets those needs met from others? If I'm giving to my kids, I feel appreciated, needed, wanted, loved. If I do for others instead of setting healthy boundaries for myself, then I feel included and I feel like part of the group. Maybe we don't set boundaries because part of it is, about self-protection or what we learned, but maybe part of it is a selfish thing, right? If I stay quiet, then nobody's going to get upset with me for the opinion that I have, which is different from other people's. If I say yes, to doing this or that and doing this and that and all the other things instead of saying no because I want to take care of myself, well, then maybe I won't be included. Or maybe I won't feel wanted. Maybe I won't feel needed. So I think we bamboozle ourselves because we can say it was all for others. I love to do good for others. I like to make other people happy, which is not necessarily a lie. It's not an untruth. But what about looking deeper and say, is part of this selfish and isn't as selfless as I want to believe it is because I can make myself feel better that way. And it's not as selfless as I would like other people to believe because, then they're going to praise me and I'm going to get all these goodies and these accolades. So the take home message is just really look good and deep at yourself and ask yourself, what's my motive here? Why am I doing this? Why am I not setting boundaries? Is part of it a selfish thing? It may or may not be. I can't answer that for you, but I know that for me, at times it is a selfish thing because I want to be included or I want to be valued or I want to be seen as having it all together or being the gracious one or the one who, be honest, be honest with yourselves. And this is a hard thing to do. So usually those first couple of years after surgery, or in my case, the first couple of years after getting into recovery and giving up the things that numbed me, we do this, oh my gosh, life is great and wonderful. And it is, it's so much better, right? In so many ways. And we start enjoying things. And if you've lost weight, you have more energy and you're more social and you're doing things and you're out there. And those are all really, really good things. So don't hear what I'm not saying. Those are really, really good things. But when it comes time for life to kind of settle back down into a new normal, and for a lot of post-ops, that kind of comes with, I'm kind of getting bored with this, or, oh, I just go back to those old habits or whatever. That's when you need to really pay attention because all that newness and fanfare and stuff is wearing off. And that's your opportunity. That's the time when you want to really start to look deep. Because by looking deep and being willing to say, what's going on that I would return to not treating myself well? What's going on that I feel crabby or I'm lashing out at others or I'm behaving in ways that are not like the person I say I want to be? And we need to look deep and say, what is going on with self? In what areas am I not loving myself? In what areas am I not proud of myself? And how can I, not drown in guilt about that, how can I work through this in healthy ways? Because drowning in guilt is only going to be like bashing ourselves more and more and more with self-hatred. That's not the answer. The answer is, how do I become and stay a healthier person and continue to improve my journey of life, developing self-worth in all of these areas of my life, right? Because self-esteem is born of how I feel about myself on the inside. And we have to work through whatever led to us not feeling good about ourselves to begin with. And then we need to work through anything that we're doing ourselves that is keeping us from being the healthiest person we can be and the person we most want to be. A person who treats ourselves well, values ourselves, which is shown through our behavior, who values others, which is also shown through our behavior toward them and toward ourselves. So there's a lot to take in this talk about self. And this is not probably where I would have gone at all prior to this weekend when I talked about this. But I felt like this self-disclosure, this self-analyzing, the self-reflection that I've done this weekend, it was prompted by an internal struggle. I knew I wasn't content on the inside. Discomfort, dis-ease. I was in a state of dis-ease within myself. And I know that means I need to do some digging. I need to sit with the discomfort. I need to work through this discomfort, figure out what it's about for me and what I need to do in healthy ways to get out of it so I can have more inner contentment. And it was a lot. It almost felt like some sort of therapy retreat this weekend, but I was able to be vulnerable and honest, real with my husband and he with me. It was a very, really good bonding experience, but it helped me to have more respect and self love for myself and also more respect and love for my husband. It was a really beautiful thing. But as any period of growth, there was a lot of pain with it. I'm not quite finished processing all of it, but I wanted to share that with all of you because I suspect that the journey that you're going through as a post-op in many ways reflects the journey that I went through post-treatment. And let me tell you, part of my unhealthy relationship with myself was struggles with food and weight too. That's part of my story as well. But wherever you're at today, what I want you to understand is that it's critical that you give yourself value and critical that you give yourself compliments and praise and encouragement and compassion for where you came from and the work that you are doing on yourself. But realizing that we can always do better. This is a lifelong journey to improve our relationship with ourselves, which will be reflected in how we treat ourselves and how we treat others, how we treat ourselves in mind, body, and spirit, which includes what we eat and includes if we exercise our body. That's just the physical part. But it also includes how we talk to ourselves and about ourselves, to other people and about other people. And then your spiritual journey. Do you put any time and energy into it? What does it mean to you? But we have to be a whole person because we are whole people. We are not just a body. We are not just a mind. We are not just an entity. We are a whole person. So give yourself the credit and recognize we can always do better and that this is an ongoing, lifelong journey. And like that onion that we talk about as therapists, we can only peel it back one layer at a time. Otherwise, we'd probably lose our minds, right? So as you peel off another layer, work through other whatever issues you've got, know that there will be more to come and it's okay. Take it as it comes, but trust that internal self. And when you're feeling discontent, take some time alone or with somebody you really love and value and can be completely honest with and work through it, allowing yourself to be vulnerable and just saying, I'm not liking this about myself. And then you'll come out of that and through that after looking at the ugly parts and saying, I'm proud of myself for doing that. So be proud of yourselves for taking every step in this journey of life toward health in every area of your life. So we have completed the 4 ACES, the 4 A words: awareness, acceptance, accountability, attitude. The E word without which nothing would be accomplished, which is effort. And S, which is yourself. Valuable, worthwhile, worth the struggle to do all of the hard work, body, mind, and spirit. So, with that, enough self disclosure, and we will be back next week on BariAftercare, on the BariAftercare podcast, and we'll dig in a little deeper with some other topics. And thanks for being here today, and thanks for listening. Remember, we're talking about your health, mind, body, and spirit, and it's your responsibility this day and every day. And every day is a chance to learn to love yourself and others better. Take care, my friends.